I think let's start. Let's start in this small, intimate group. Maybe people will join us later. So, our connection. We don't force anyone, but if we had a wish free, that would be one of it. Very welcome to all of you to this workshop on transforming education. My name is Barbara Walder, and we introduce ourselves in a minute. First of all, also thank you to all the Entrepreneurship Summit organizers. I've been with the group and Professor Folgt for now almost 10 years, bringing MBA students into small projects, being an active member at the Entrepreneurship Summit, an event that is very close to my heart. So thank you for inviting me and us today again. And yes, some of you know me. We have also students here. My name is Barbara Walder, and I have various roles in my non-Minerva life. I'm a coach and leadership trainer, and I've done, as I said previously, a lot on the entrepreneurial side and connected that with the educational industry. But here today with my lovely colleague Jamal and many of our students representing Minerva University, we want to talk about that towards the end of our workshop. But maybe Jamal, say also a quick hello to everyone so they've seen your face and listened to your lovely voice.
Oh, yeah, sorry, my music is still on. I'm Jamal. I am a partnership manager in the student life division and the ground-based team in Berlin for Minerva University. Also a keen youth worker and startup support consultant. Thanks,
maybe the music can go off now, Jamal, if you can do that. Then we have less background noise now. What we like to do today, for the next slide, maybe this year, we are very happy that the broader scope or topic at the Entrepreneurship Summit is all about transformation, and it's a good time to talk about transformation per se, having coped with recent constraints. And so we thought it's a good idea to talk about transformation in an educational perspective. And when we say education, even though we will share some of our stories in higher ed with Minerva University, we do want to open the discussions here in this workshop to education per se, and that could be, as outlined here, kindergarten, primary, secondary, but equally continued professional development, and last but not least, lifelong learning. So this is just the context that we don't want to just focus on the one angle, but be very broad in our hypothesis of, do we actually need to transform education? And that would be the next slide, what we have planned for you here today. So we would like to see here together with our students and other Entrepreneurship Summit visitors, why should we actually be looking into a transformative journey of higher education, and sending you off into breakouts in a minute. But we also want to see how would we actually go about transforming the educational landscape. So what have you already experienced as a best practice? Where have you seen good starting points? Before we also want to share some of our wisdom with some of our students here. So hopefully they find an active voice explaining a little bit more about Minerva University. And we will be in real togetherness tomorrow. I'm very happy to say we will be in person at the summit tomorrow with a longer workshop. And towards the end of our session here today, Jamal and I will explain a little bit more about the format and what we have planned for you. Now, why does education need to change is here the question. And we would like to send you now into a small breakout groups. I'm just looking, we are 14 in this room minus us. So maybe we do 3 rooms, Jamal, and it doesn't matter whether you actually have ever thought about this question or not, but you can play a little bit together. We give you 10 minutes time, just you don't have to take notes or anything. Just have a conversation why you think, if you think education should change. Maybe you are also of the opinion education is just good and needs no change. Both is totally acceptable. And we see you here back maybe in 10 minutes. Just enjoy the time and meet some maybe new people. For some of our Minervans, you may end up in one group and know each other, of course. And we'll bring you back to this stage in around sort of 10 minutes, and we do some sharing and thinking together. So Jamal, take it away and send our lovely students into the breakout rooms. I stay in here. So Jamal, you and I don't need to be divided. So maybe you can manually take us out again. Wonderful.
Yeah, everyone's now joined.
Yeah,
joined the breakout rooms.
So in case the breakout room, in case somebody is coming in now to our general call here, we would see the person, and then we need to just manually shift them into a room in case somebody was to come late.
Okay. Yeah, we've got 3 rooms, 4, 3, and 4. But Francesca Southwell Edwards, definitely not a student. Sophie Decker?
No.
No. Uwe Saxe, also not a student. Hilal Kakil, possibly or not?
So, but our 14 students are also not there, right?
Not all of them, yeah. I think annoyingly, I think we might have all our 4 students in one room, in room 3.
Better. So then they can, it's also interesting what they say. Maybe they have new ideas, so it's okay.
Hello, welcome, Ying Hong. How are you? We've just opened up the breakout rooms to discuss why does education need to change. But maybe once they haven't quite connected yet, the audio, maybe it makes more sense they just chat with us.
No. You can just move them now into room.
Okay.
If you go into there.
Into the deep end for Ying Hong.
Yeah,
great to have you with us.
We're in room 3.
Just having a break off for 5-10 minutes. 10 minutes, okay? In a break off room to discuss why does education need to change.
Nice one.
So thanks for joining us. You're just gonna enter a separate breakout room with 4 others.
She hasn't joined, so I'm not sure what's happening.
Yeah, but also feel free to stay with us and say hello. Turn on your video and just maybe say hello to Barbara and I while we wait for the groups to come back.
It's just
the main room.
It's just stationary. It's not.
It's also fine. You're in the transforming education workshop online today, and a longer version and offline tomorrow. Thanks again for joining us.
I don't think she's joined because it says in the breakout room if you click not joined.
No, yeah, they're still with us. They're still with us right now in the main room. Yeah,
but
I've assigned them room 3, but they haven't accepted it. So I have to. I've assigned Ying Hong to room 3, but
Ying Hong, could you quickly say hello, please, so we know you're here and it's just not.
I'm asking them to unmute, and I'm messaging.
Hmm.
Yeah, they've just jumped out of the workshop. That's why.
Interesting.
But cold feet, clearly.
What we have, but yeah, let's see. We can do this later and also have a discussion with our students because we are also recording here. But yeah,
we've had them in the breakoff room now for 5 minutes. That 5 minutes weirdly did fly by, but
yeah, we leave another a bit more time because we are also good in time, because it's only 3:45 when we actually wanted to send them. So I think let's leave a little bit more time. You can also broadcast to all rooms that we do another 6 minutes.
Yeah, okay. I'll just say they've got 3 minutes left, yeah?
No. We do a bit longer because we have time,
Just tell them they've got 6 minutes left? It's just a text message.
So you can do the broadcast message to all in the...
Indeed, yeah. We must have, I think we've got 5 non-students and 6 students. They've now been in for 8 minutes. I'm having no more response from the students at the moment.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Should we, they've been out for 10 minutes. Should we bring them back in?
Close it and then they come slowly back. In any case, they have normally 60 seconds then.
Great.
Well, we had only 3 groups, so we can go group by group. That's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. You can take that top layer maybe off. Wonderful. And Dodi, hello. Looking nice. Everyone is coming back slowly. Did we lose some? No. That's always a bad sign, you know. Great. So let's see what was interesting in your discussions. And because we only had 3 groups, we have the pleasure to hear you all. Let's go to group 1. I hope you know still or remember who was.
Hilal, Krithik, Sophie, and Uwe.
Wonderful. Do some sharing with us. What was interesting? Did you run out of time or did you have too much time to tackle this huge topic? And what stood out for you? Why do you think education should change?
Well, actually, we used the time to to get together and just have a little conversation about the last 2 years of hybrid or online teaching, and that there are different views of how it should go on. Mm-hmm. Like, should it be still digital, or is the face-to-face conversation more important now? And what do the students need? I think we will have to face with that in future education.
Yeah. Right.
Learning of Corona.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anything else that you shared in the group before we ask group 2 maybe?
Well, I personally think that we should have more. Well, I work at the House of Competence in
nice.
Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, and we teach a lot of competencies for students all along the student life cycle. Mm-hmm. And well, in my opinion, there should be more social and more future skills education in the higher education system, maybe also in secondary schools.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's definitely something that's more like along the social emotional learning and that experiential learning that has sometimes the appearance to have been forgotten, you know. Mm-hmm. So we look into one direction or tackle educational complex problems with one sort of lens, but I think this topic is exactly right, and we will also share some of our thoughts on this digital element in education. And it was a wonderful example how we saw this unfolded in primary and secondary schools during the pandemic. And this is not only about technology and technology know-how, but also about the intelligence. How do we actually want and how can we use technology in education? So it's a bigger, broader topic, and the Minervans can for sure speak to that topic very well. Well, thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
How about group 2? Who was in group 2? I can check that, you know.
Yeah.
Pablo, Jacob, Francesca. Pablo. There you are, smiley man. Come on, give us some of your wisdom. What was worth sharing? Why do you think education should change?
Yeah, I think like in our group, like now looking at it like in the back, it's like it was super cool what like Sophie's group did of kind of like also like giving like practical, because I think one of like the biggest things was like, okay, it's like such a huge topic, right? Like yes. We had a problem, like, okay, what about it was a thing? Like we talked specifically about like 3 things, where it was like access to education, then early education, and then also like practical education and the feedback that the teachers get to improve. I think those were like the 4 aspects that we were like, okay, how is that going? But then there's like in the larger idea of like, okay, what about education? I think we got overwhelmed, or at least I did. I got overwhelmed by the question of like, oh, what is education? What like problem exists? Because obviously there's a lot of good things, there's a lot of like bad things, and it's just focusing on one might be helpful.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you say it's so overwhelming. And it's literally this why question. We could probably write a couple of books about it. It is overwhelming, you know, because we don't know where to start. And where do you identify the main need for it? But yeah, thanks for sharing that insight. Is there anyone else in your group who wants to build on that or has some more wisdom to add? We could do cold calling, you know, the Minerva way. I love that. I feel so powerful. Yeah, I won't do that. So for all the other participants, unless you sit in your cupboard or on an apple tree, that would be awesome, actually, if you did. Could you potentially be tempted to put your videos on? Because it's just spelled out names, and it would be absolutely lovely to see you, to get some sort of connection. Jacob, you see, very good. Nice. So how about the others? Yep, wonderful, great. So room 3, Jamal, who was in room 3, well, everyone who was not in room 1 and 2.
Yeah, we had Natalia, Fong, Saeed, and Dodi.
Nice. Who wants to share something?
I can share. So I think similar to Pablo, I think I didn't know how to address this question because it's so big. And I don't know, generally don't know where to start. But we started talking about why we came to Minerva, because it is like a different model than the traditional school system, and kind of hearing everybody's story on like how Imad talks about like the things that he really, like the selling point of Minerva that really caught him to apply. But others, like me and Natalia, we share like really bad experience with applying to school in the US, or like bad experience with the traditional system that kind of led us to choose other paths. And, you know, that we didn't intentionally think like, oh, education system is bad, you know, like it's like, or at least for me, it's like, it's more like things that didn't work out, but then let the doors to alternative models that eventually fit me.
Right.
And when I think back, I was like, because I'm here in the alternative model, I fit here, but I always wonder, like, it's not for everyone, you know, like not everybody would fit in Minerva, and people would still succeed in traditional model, for example.
Yeah.
Then is the model itself bad? I don't know.
Yeah, makes sense. Wonderful sharing. And you can later also for all the non-Minervans here today, when we maybe introduce Minerva through your active voices, things become a little bit more clear when you say it's maybe non-traditional or it's a different approach. Yet, good point to point out, that's also not for everyone, right? So education is, after all, an individual choice. Great. Okay, so any other wisdom? How about you, Critique? Jacob, what were your main takeaways? See, I did the cold calling. I love it. You can do the same with me, of course. You can prompt me. Put me out of comfort. I like it.
Yeah, sure. I can go ahead.
Dodi, you raised your hand. Oh, nice. Yeah, Critique first you, and then I pass it on to Dodi.
Yeah, we all have different ideas of online education because of, I guess, the different platforms that we use. I mean, as Minervans, we're all, I guess, a little biased towards like the forum. And maybe that's like a different experience from, say, doing classes on like Google Meets or Microsoft Teams.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the takeaway that I got.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Go ahead, Dodi.
Okay, so I had a conversation with Ben today, and we were talking about how the world is changing and becoming increasingly complex and more connected, right? So people, like students, have to have like a framework for thinking about problems and making decisions. And I think, I mean, it's currently, it's not emphasized in the current educational system. I mean, there's some elements of it, but there's no like concrete framework or like a systems thinking framework for thinking about those kind of problems. So I think that's something that should be more pronounced in educational systems.
Nice. Thank you. All right, Jamal, take it away and share our slides again, because if you thought this was all the work and the thoughts you had to spend here, I have bad news. We somehow started with the why. So why does education need to change? We want to show you also a couple of thoughts that Jamal and I have collected in our next slide, why we thought, and many of the things you had actually already said that, we feel that engagement or disengagement within the learning communities is a dominant point, and lack of like sort of individualized approaches. Collaboration and learning how to learn, but also collaboration with others was for us also a starting point to say this is why we should change, because it's not a one man or one woman show, but we have to be in different collaborative alliances to tackle complex problems. Digitalization, you mentioned that in many different ways, and maybe Minerva can later also introduce how we use technology in a different way. And earlier on, I think with Sophie, we touched a little bit already on the social component. So we identified that as well, the differentiation of ourselves from machines, really, through creativity and teamwork, but also social emotional learning. The interdisciplinarity I want to pick here, so the innovation and not just thinking in typical silos. See, if I think of my first degree in economics, I feel there was not that much opportunity to be interdisciplinary. One could argue that's because I studied 100 years ago and things are different now, but let's not go too deeply into that. So these were just a couple of thoughts that we had, and also the link to more of the professional landscape of training for jobs and also confronting really complex problems and challenges of the future. So our starting point in the title of this workshop was already, do we actually have the right skills when our education is completed, quote unquote, to tackle such challenging, complex problems out there. Okay, so if we have some sort of a common understanding that, actually, there is a point why we could think of changing the educational landscape, then the next thing would be, how would we really do that? And maybe Jamal, you want to bring us to the next slide. So for Minervans, maybe they think because they took an intentional choice to study with Minerva, that is already part of all of you changing in a way. But, you know, other manifestations out there that you've seen and witnessed, and where you think, yeah, that's a clear sign that something is up in the air and changing the way we think or talk. So we want to send you in another breakout of 10 minutes, come back before we then introduce the Minerva way a little bit more and have a discussion about that. So this is here really, how is it changing? And can you already share best practices? Have you seen projects out there that make you feel you know, more positive, or that you thought were exciting or groundbreakingly different also in your own networks? Then that's the big how now in your next breakout. So Jamal, take it away and send our lovely people into 3 rooms. And we'll bring you back in sort of 10 minutes.
I've sent you into slightly different rooms this time, just slightly. Just mixing the groups up a bit. This way. Natalia, are you joining a room?
I didn't get an invite.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure how that happened. Give me a second. Otherwise, you can talk with Barbara and I. Otherwise, that's also fine. Let's try that again. Understand how that happened. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Unassigned. I'm sorry. Okay. Send you into room 1. Apologies. Yep.
Very nice.
Yeah. And this time it's maybe.
Maybe we can go to 20 past. So we give 12 minutes. Maybe there is some more examples out there, and and then we can certainly do the Minerva way before maybe we have a sort of opportunity at the end to just let it be. Have a dialogue, have discussions, answer questions if there are any, and take it from there.
Yeah, definitely. What was the organization that was it Sophia was from?
The Kompetenzzentrum in Sophie Decker, her name.
House of Competency, or
yes.
But what do they do? Is it like a think tank that
it's I think it's in Hamburg. Did she say Hamburg?
I can't remember.
Hang on, let me just find.
I'm going to search them up. Yeah, I took some notes. but I can't remember where it was based. It says Karlsruhe.
Ah, ja, Karlsruhe. Mhm.
Oh, it's near my family.
Mhm.
Yeah, they carry out research work on interdisciplinary skills development in general and on media learning and teacher training in particular.
Wonderful. So I'll share the time for tomorrow is also on our slide, right?
It is. I think so. Yeah, it is. It is.
That's wonderful. Yeah, so organized.
They've been in the rooms for 4 minutes, and so there's 8 minutes left, and 7 minutes. I will give them the call.
That's wonderful.
Hopefully more of them will show up tomorrow when it's a physical.
I mean, everyone is also, like Sophie Decker said, it's the fatigue of online events, and it's you know, for me, the Entrepreneurship Summit every year was my personal highlight. I mean, if you've never been to the Henry Ford Bow, you know, the pure aesthetic of the event, but it's all about talking, making friends, making connections, meeting people in a very sort of organic way, and that's the beauty of the Entrepreneurship Summit.
I hope they more of them turn up tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, you know, these events were never meant to be online events. Of course, we cope here and we do our best, but from my experience with over 1,000 visitors in real at the summit, these were the numbers we were looking at, you know, and the audio max keynote speeches and setting up entrepreneurial designs live, you know, live pitching of keen, wonderful ideas, you know, it's just been inspiring. So I hope you will absolutely get that vibe tomorrow when we go there. So and catch some of the other notes and maybe connect with some people. You know, this is what it's meant to be.
Sure, it runs through till 5 p.m. tomorrow. So there's.
Sorry.
It runs through to 5 p.m.
Exactly.
Afternoon time. So there's plenty of time after the workshop.
Plenty tomorrow. Of time, and starting 10. Is it 10:30 or?
I think it might even be 10:15. Start the workshop. We'll see at the end of this presentation. 5 more minutes.
I didn't see when it is. It's not in here.
10:45 to 1 o'clock.
10:45
So
to 1 o'clock. And it's the Konferenzraum 3, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, it feels kind of quite fantastic. My residence card just arrived.
Hello, Jamal. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, Michael, yes.
I'm an online participant and I just got connected, but I don't really understand what is going on right now.
Yeah, they are all in the breakout groups now. So maybe just chat to us for now.
So the session will go on, or
yes.
is it over?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely.
30 more minutes. Yeah. Including a practical case study on higher education innovation.
Thank you.
Just stay with us.
Stay with us.
Yes, I will. Okay. Thank you.
Welcome, Daniel. Also, Daniel's dropped out. Michael, stay with us.
Wonderful. So how many minutes do we have to bring them back?
I'm gonna bring them back in 1 minute.
Yeah, you can maybe just close the rooms and bring them back then.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Close.
Great. And Michael, for context, we have 3 things today. We tackled the question why we think we should change education. So that was our first breakout session. And now the second one, and you will see the participants come back in a minute, is how would we go about it, and have those participants found out signs where education has already changed into a new direction. And so we're going to bring them all back now to share some of their wisdom before we actually introduce Minerva University and some of our students. So we can maybe see some of the differences, how we think education could be transformed, just for context.
Thank you for explaining.
You're so welcome. Wonderful. Smiling faces is a good sign. This time we go the other way around. So we start with the third group, share some wisdom. How do you think has the educational landscape changed, or are there any things you've seen out there that are positive or are facilitators of that change? So group 3.
We're looking for any inputs from Hilal, Dodi, or Saeed.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay. You might go ahead, please.
Yeah, so in our group we were just talking about like how the system like has changed and there's like more specialized roles nowadays because like for example finance at the beginning it was just about like finance was in the knowledge of just business and financial analysis, but nowadays it's about fintech and technology. So now you also need to have those coding skills as well to understand the whole field. So like this the as we're yeah, continuing, that education system is getting more advanced and more specialized, and for that you need like a diverse range of skills, not just like a specific field. Oh yeah, that's pretty tough.
Nice one. Is there anything to add for group 3? Critique is already talking. You can talk to all of us. Tony, come on.
Okay. Yeah, something else that we talked about was how education is becoming increasingly global. Like you see people doing study abroad programs and all that, because in the real world, like when you're working with people, you're not just working with people from the same background as you. So you have to learn the skills of effective communication with people from all these diverse backgrounds so that you can work together in teams to make something more meaningful. So yeah.
Yeah. And we will talk later a little bit about this global citizenship element. Maybe one of you can also explain that to our audience here today. Great, thanks for sharing group 3. How about group 2?
That's Jacob, Pablo, or Sophie again, if she's still with us.
Yep.
Yep.
Jacob, you are ready to talk. I know it.
Yeah, I just wanted to do that.
Thinking face on. What do you want to share?
Yeah, so during our group talks, we were talking about, so I was with Pablo and Sophie, and Pablo is a Minervan and Sophie works at a, I think, different campus. So we were trying to explain to Sophie how Minerva works, and Minerva is like an example in this case. And we were telling her about how our classes don't work in the lecture styles. We try to, when we go to class, we already know the material beforehand because they are in the pre-class readings, and then when you just go to class, you are not taught by the professor, but you're just like in a discussion mode. So because during those studies, they found that when you do discussions in class, you have a better understanding of the material more than if a professor just comes and teaches you. And then also Sophie was also trying to tell us how education has changed from where at where she works, because she was telling us about how students at the place don't only just do classes, they also do other courses outside school that are not constrained in the class, like team building activities or our outdoor activities, so that they are not just constrained in the class, but they have the sense of the nature activities. Yeah.
Sharp memory. Very good. Nice summary here. And I think we are opening this up in any case because we're introducing Minerva in a minute, and then I think we could just have a group discussion here because we are not too many. But I want to quickly give a stage to group 1 as well to see what elements did you find in the rubric of how education is changing, has changed, or whether you gathered any specific examples.
Any thought? Oh, Natalia's got a hand up. Yes, Natalia.
Yeah, I think that's our group. I think one of the key takeaways that we had is that a lot of educational systems are sort of like asking themselves like how to improve and how to be better, but that looks very different depending on the context. So like, for example, in developing countries, improving education can be more related to getting girls into classrooms that are excluded from education. But then in elite contexts, we have like the luxury to be like asking, how do we incorporate technology into education? How do we make education more interactive? So even though education is changing and advancing, I think it's not or we thought that it was very context dependent and definitely not at the same speed and not at the same ways. So yeah, that was our reflection.
Very valid point. I mean, hugely valid point. And something that we haven't even sort of labeled in our title here, in which context do we have these discussions, because they can only just be very broad, but shouldn't be generalized. You know, thank you, Natalia, for making this remark. Important. Wonderful. Well, Jamal, why don't you go back to our slide deck to see whether we had any additional wisdom here before we want to introduce maybe Minerva. Yeah, I think, and we don't have to go into a lot of detail here. A couple of elements we have seen in different contexts are more collaborative environments, and I mentioned that before, obviously, and a sort of like more integrated technology approach, an inquiry-based approach, problem-solving methodologies in different layers are much more visible now than they were before. You know, even I can say for secondary schools, they see more and more, hopefully more teachers, more as facilitators, and that sort of reflective practitioner work of applying knowledge or in a hands-on learning are also elements we saw positive. I'm also working with a couple of universities here in Berlin and beyond that focus very much on the entrepreneurial mindset. So rather than just the academic plus co-curricular activities, it's sort of one like more of a project laboratory where courses are more modules, and the entrepreneurial mindset is much more sharpened to an extent where students set up their own business potentially already while still studying, right? So this is also a collaboration I had with the Entrepreneurship Summit around Professor Folgt, who also have a masterclass of entrepreneurs to be, who during that year basically all conclude with setting up their business. So these are certainly approaches that made us believe, yes, this is how a change could actually look. So if we talk maybe about Minerva and Jamal, this is the next slide, then I always wondered, I mean, I've been with Minerva almost 6 years, and I think when I met our founder, Ben Nelson, who explained hugely passionately that he wanted to really transform the education, I thought, okay, I'm in it. I'm an educational passionista, but I'm also suffered through various systems within Germany. But you know, I've studied in Asia, I studied in the UK. I saw differences early on, but here I thought that sort of brave marriage between technology and education was really appealing. So. Maybe Jamal, you can go to the next slide. We can go through this relatively quickly. Jamal, we have lost you.
Sorry.
There. So I think some of you in the group have touched on the actual science of learning element at Minerva, and maybe I want to ask one of our students. I said initially, I think in 2011, 12, when Ben Nelson had these initial discussions with Stephen Coughlin, a neuroscientist from who taught at various high-ranked universities before, their starting point was of transformative nature, but also how can we combine the best of both worlds and really look at what our teaching methodology is in you know, learning new skills. So if one of you Minervans had to summarize what the key essence of the pedagogy at Minerva is, how would you describe it? And volunteers, please just start. I'm gonna do cold calling, as you know. 1, 2, 3. Come on, Pablo, you look ready.
Awesome, I'm ready.
You're ready. Why? How do we teach differently at Minerva? So what's and we don't have the time to go into too much detail, but how would you describe it really easily?
Yeah, like for me, it would be like the flexibility to like get to apply and get to like see different topics at the same time. For me, if I would like.
Yeah. Oh, you cut out there at the end. I think also Jacob mentioned earlier, they know their pre-readings. It's a flipped classroom whereby students have, materials that will be applied. So they're much more in the scope of a reflective practitioner. And in their 90-minute classes, really apply the knowledge rather than sit through theory only. So I would leave it at here. The curriculum therefore supports early on professional progression. So, at Minerva, there's different majors in 1,000 different concentrations. So be it art or business or computer technology or social and natural science. In their first year, they really support with formal analysis, empirical analysis, complex systems, and multi-model communication. The so-called cornerstone education combined with something called habits of mind and foundational concepts, HCs. So this is very different in their freshman year. Before in the second year, they go much more into a direction of their future major. And Jamal, if you lead us to the next slide. Technology, here you see happy smiling students. That's wonderful. We gave them all $5 to do that in that screenshot. No, but this is the normal scenario. This is what our platform looks like, the so-called forum. And the technology approach is really centered on what we call novel seminars, as we said before. So these classes are graded, and I took classes. It stressed me in the beginning, but clearly my brain is not as fresh anymore. Students are used to it, but it's academically extremely challenging to prepare for these classes well, apply the knowledge, and have assignments and after work to do. Next one, the entrepreneurial mindset. We mentioned that before, and I think I just want to go one further. Jamal, one next slide to come to the, maybe one more, because I want to go to this global citizenship and why do we have these wonderful students in Berlin? This is a 4-year journey, and we start in San Francisco, where we were born and headquartered, but our students in their first year are in San Francisco and then Taipei. And in the second year, they're in Seoul and Hyderabad. And in their third year, they come to Berlin and Buenos Aires. And in the fourth year, to London and back to San Francisco for graduation. Sadly, COVID did affect also us, not in the sense of how we really teach, but the sort of cultural immersion elements. So certain cities simply were and still are unable to have students back. But this sense of self and global citizenship is very important. So students still follow their very challenging academic program, but there are in 7 cities, in fact, in each city 4 months, where they, in addition to their academic program, culturally immerse through different layers. They all volunteer with partners here for so-called civic projects to sharpen the development more in the professional development area. and also in terms of civic engagement, plus through city experiences, because I guess Minervans are much more looking through a lens of a resident than just a study abroad, and they have to immerse deeply in a very short amount of time, but hopefully along with their major or double major also take away that in-depth global citizenship approach to this very complex system called our current world, really. So I want to maybe leave it here. Our last slide, Jamal was really reinventing the university community. We don't have a university building or a tennis court or library. Students live together. They need good technology to take their classes, but the city is really the campus. The city is their community, and so we invest not only in community engagement amongst the cohorts, but really connecting them to the outside world. The Entrepreneurship Summit is one example, but it could be through volunteering opportunities, through civic partners we have, through here, for example, we worked with Refugio in different capacities in Berlin, where students just got that hands-on experience and sense of belonging to have some roots in their semester with us. So I'd like to open it up to everyone. Maybe we can also stop sharing our slides here and see whether you have questions for us, really. Before we conclude, we have around 10 minutes left. And for those of you that have not heard about Minerva before, you have the unique opportunity to ask less me, but our wonderful students what they can tell in addition to what I try to do in a nutshell about Minerva. Do we have Sophie still here? Yes, Sophie is still here. I'm just looking who's non-Minervan here, and I think some of us left, some left already. So we have only Minervans apart from Sophie. That's funny. Right. Any questions at all? So I guess, I mean, two things were mentioned in the breakout group study. You mentioned a couple of times that global element, and that is certainly something that is very different to traditional study abroad programs. You know, that 7-city rotation model, that sort of global leadership, global citizenship approach. That is indeed very different, and it's also very challenging. And coming back to our student who already had to leave, sadly, who said Minerva is also not for everyone. Whilst this looks, when you first read about Minerva, also glamorous, it's also a very challenging journey per se, right? Would our Minervan students agree? Yeah, Pablo says, yes, it's challenging, but look at him, still smiling. Yeah, because transitions, you know, every 4 months somewhere else, you can never really build that nest you want to maybe really build. You are juggling many different things at the same time. Your academic forthcoming, some of our students have work study with us at Minerva. They engage with a civic partner in the city. They might want to volunteer, and they may even work for a company remotely. So it's quite a lot.
Do you have what can you study at Minerva? Mm-hmm. What makes this concept I'm missing the word. Why is that concept such a basic concept for your idea?
Mm-hmm. Maybe one of our students can explain what you can study.
Yeah, I can go ahead.
Nice, Pablo, thank you.
Yeah, because I've like jumped from major to major. But initially started wanting to do film. So I went to like arts and humanities, and there we have like five different schools where it's arts and humanities, computer science, natural sciences. We have like a business school. Hopefully I'm not forgetting a really important school.
Computer technology, right?
Social sciences and
social science and human, yeah.
Social sciences. And then, so like in each one, you're going to have like the normal kind of like tracks. So arts and humanities, you have like history, arts, and then ethics. I was more like the art track, but also wanted to do psychology. So that would be like your social sciences one, and finished off with computer sciences, which will take anything from like math, studying math there, to computer sciences, artificial intelligence. It really depends. Like that's why I mentioned like adaptability, because there's been like some students that wanted to, for example, study, there's one specific one, that the science of food. And because we're such a like small school, we don't have like the class for like the science of food class. But what she did is that like in each of the assignments are really open-ended. So she put up like that specific subject and brought it into the classes. So to put it like concisely, you can study whatever you want. It's kind of like a normal like American degree program, but with the added component that they really let you be flexible with what you want to study.
So I think it's Sophie, it's very different to hear, and also Pablo, to set the context, you commit to studying economics at a university here. That's what you do for 8, 10, 12 semesters, with all the layers. There are some concentrations or specifications after your first maybe 4 semesters where you can go into direction A, B, C, D. But it's different. And this is what I said also in the first year, regardless whether you commit to social science or art and humanities, the cornerstones in problem solving and critical thinking and coding applies to all of our students, right? Regardless what their actual major eventually will be from second year on. So that is very interdisciplinary. And very different to what most comparable universities, or at least my university upbringing used to be. So very different. And there was a second question, Sophie. You said, what can you study and why do you think
why do you think it's necessary to do this in these different countries and on these different landscapes?
I mean, I can say a couple of things, but maybe we also ask the students, we are very much, I mean, we have students from over 60 different countries, and we are in togetherness sending them off to the 7 cities. So it's double diverse. If you think so, diversity plays a very organic role within the community and cohorts, but also then outside what used to be maybe your home context in these cities. And here you could argue, well, if they can take their classes online, they could just stay at home. Correct. But what the real experience design is the cultural immersion when there are in these cities, because this is where they engage with a small NGO in Berlin and a partner, and 4 students work on a project for 8 weeks. So they learn clearly culturally, but they learn they learn about leadership, about communications, they learn about whatever, politics, whatever their interest is, and they learn this 7 times in a context that is not their home context necessarily. And so that is why I think the takeaway is I have majored or double majored, but also I have become a global citizen. And my definition of global citizen is I have lived and transited into all these new cultures, worked, volunteered, engaged, and therefore starting my job or next internship, I'm used to different perspectives, and that is something I feel is clearly, obviously, very different to just quote unquote study in one city for 5 years and then maybe travel, right? Mm-hmm. So you can also get to know cultures then, but here it's integrated, as to speak. Oops. Right. So yeah, if that makes sense.
We have a workshop tomorrow as well in person for a much longer period of time at the conference location. And then Barbara and I will be around all day. So we look forward to seeing and maybe meeting you in person, Sophie, and also the students at the conference summit location. Yeah.
Be there early. It's a beautiful location. Minerva students, it's a little bit of a hike out there, but the Henry Ford Bow, the entire setup there, the people, it's beautiful. The weather is nice. You can take your bikes, don't get lost. Yeah, it's hands-on tomorrow. Really, we are using a method called How Might We? And we are just working in a bigger group to see how might we together redefine education in certain contexts, and each little group will work together, maybe also in different contexts, you know, build on what Natalia said earlier. So if you fancy it or you have any other friends, there's no need that you necessarily sat through today's little event. You can just come by and see what we do there. And yeah, I thank you to all of you who made it and were here. We see you hopefully in person tomorrow, and I understand we also share materials and some of our notes and contact details through the Entrepreneurship Summit organization after the workshop. Thank you so much and enjoy your weekend. If you go quickly outside, you still catch some sun. Thank you, Jamal, as well. Brilliant job. Thank you, all Minervans, and thank you, Sophie, and all the other visitors.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.